I think voice is a big subject that people should be thinking about a lot more. And it goes a little bit beyond voice. It should be also the digital personal assistants as a whole. Think about how we're using it and how they're controlling our lives a little bit. It's almost as if they're like the bouncer to our lives or the gatekeeper. Soon, all the ads and what we see is going to be filtered out by these digital personal assistants.
Hello and welcome to the Jumpstart podcast with Jeffalytics. I'm your host, Jeff Sauer. Today, for our 29th episode, we'll talk with Purna Virji, PPC trainer, evangelist, speaker, and more at Microsoft, and also my new bestie. I have followed Purna for years, but we had only met in passing to this point. But you could say that we hit it off right away, and I'm excited that we were able to kick off a friendship based on mutual admiration and enjoyment. And I have to say that Purna is super easy to talk to, engaging, and her energy is contagious. And for that, I am thankful because I'm trying to do something new with this episode. Let me give you the setting. We started recording at 10 p.m., and I was in Copenhagen in Denmark. Earlier that day, I had taken a fjord cruise through Norway, and just an hour before our interview, my plane landed in Copenhagen, and we checked into our Airbnb just in time to check out the Wi-Fi system. Talking about threading the needle. Well, after an exhausting day, I was worried about keeping the energy up for our recording, but once we figured out how to get our microphones working, Purna and I started talking like old friends. Now, Purna's story was exciting and her energy was contagious, so it actually made the interview flow really well. Now, I don't want to give away the story in the intro, but I must say that Purna shares lessons that can benefit all of us. The way she approached a new industry was a perfect case in diving headfirst into an area of passion. Her first speaking gig story, talk about epic. But I don't want to steal her thunder. Let's talk to Purna Virji and hear it from my new bestie. For show notes, visit jeffalytics.com/Purna. Okay, so we're here today with Purna Virji. Purna, thank you for joining us on the podcast.
Well, thanks for having me, Jeff. I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah, it's great. I've been following you for quite a few years and have seen you speak and really interested in the things that you share and write about and speak about. And so I want to get to the bottom of it. And so let's start with asking the question that we've been known to ask when we start. And that is, what was the moment that you realized that this career in search marketing was something that you were interested in, that was the right career for you?
It's such a nice nostalgic question to think about. I'll start with this. Growing up, I was always passionate about many different things. I never was the child that was like, I'm going to be the doctor, I'm going to be the lawyer. I liked too many different things. So that's why I decided to do journalism. So I went and I did all the way my master's in journalism. I moved to America several years ago to work in TV then. So I worked for PBS and I produced a talk show there. It was fabulous. I was, you're really young and you can do these long hours and you can do the crazy days and the no money. And I realized at some point that I'm going to have to do something different. And I moved into traditional PR when I had my son, who was born with a lot of health issues at the time. So I realized I just couldn't keep up my TV production career, much as I loved it. So I moved into traditional PR and was working at this agency that was really a technology company, and PR was like this tiny arm. We weren't that busy. So then I was talking to my friend in London who was working for AOL at the time, which was humongous back in 2005, 2006. And then she moved to another agency and she's like, I'm doing this thing called SEO. Like, you should test it out. I'm like, oh, really? Tell me more. She told me about it. She told me about this thing called AdWords as well. I'm like, oh, geez, what is that? And so then I went to my CEO at the time. I'm like, hey, I put a little proposal. This is what I think we can do. It ties in well with and he was very into those business books. I did the whole golden triangle. And I said, listen, this is what we're known for, technology. It's not that busy. How about we test this crazy thing called SEO and AdWords out? And I'm really fortunate that he was very, forward thinking and let me try it out on ourselves. It worked. Yeah. So he's like, okay, try it out on some clients. It worked. And then he was like, okay, go and get more business and form the division. So I went and I would speak at local organizations like the Builders League of South Jersey and talk about like SEO and directories and all the horrible stuff that it was back in 2007.
Yeah.
And they were like, go and do this thing called AdWords at the time. And that's about it. So I founded the division in a way. We hired more people. We got busier. It was fantastic. So I worked agency side for 3 years and then I moved in-house for the longest time.
So that's cool. Like, not everybody really seems to have the opportunity where they can just go and create something. How did you approach a situation where you got to ask somebody, or were they like, "Hey, start doing it. Start a division. Start going after this." Was it something that you asked for, or did they really just come up to you and say, "Hey, you can go do that as long as it makes sense"?
It was very organic. So I went and I did it. He's like, let's see if it works for us. And it did. Then I think he realized that we could bill hours. We could bill our clients for this. So we tested it really small on some of our, good friend clients. And it worked for them. And then they're like, we could make money off this girl. So keep doing it. And then as I got busier, and that's how it sort of grew. So it wasn't more like, okay, great, you can go and found the division. It was more, it just happened because we got really busy. It was very exciting. We were doing a ton of billable work and it worked very well for lots of different clients.
Yeah, that's neat. I mean, so this is funny. I've never said this on the podcast, but I almost had the exact same start. So the first AdWords client I had was in the home improvement space, and I basically did a good job for them on AdWords, and then they went to a builders association and told all their friends about the success they were having with Google, and that's how we started our PPC division. Is basically the same thing as just word of mouth and people saying, hey, we like these results, they're better than what we're able to do on our own, and that was sort of how we started. Sort of crazy.
Yeah, what parallel. See, we're meant to be besties, Jeff, now.
Yes, exactly. Yes, following such humble beginnings. Okay, so you were at the agency and helped them build that out. What made you decide to progress forward? Like, you said you were doing that for like 3 years. What did you do after that?
Well, I realized that this is the industry that I've fallen like madly in love with. I think I went and I did very, very early on, like late 2007, maybe early 2008, I went to a training seminar that Brad Geddes had hosted when he was doing them for Google before. And I'm like, oh my God, this man is a genius. And AdWords is so powerful. This is what I want to do. And then right after that, maybe a month later, I did something that Justin Cutroni was hosting when he was still with his other company in Vermont before he was at Google. And I was like, this is like, I love it. Like, I'm so nerdy. I'm equally left and right brain. Like, I love the whole data side and I love the creative side. So I'm like, this is my calling. Like, this is what I was born to do. And like, as nerdy and horrible as it sounds to say that, I'm like, I love it. I want to do this. And I wanted to learn more and grow. And then if you're working at this agency with tons of different clients, you don't get that depth. Like, I would hear Justin be like, you need to go and find out this and your cost per acquisition and lifetime value. And I was like, I can't find this stuff out at an agency. So I was really, really lucky to be hired by it was like a startup in the Philadelphia area, and we sold self-help and educational products. So I think we were competing with our language learning product. We're competing with the likes of Rosetta Stone. So it was very David versus Goliath. But it forced us to be so scrappy and come up with innovative ways and use analytics like very, very carefully. So everything we did was measured, planned, forecasted. I think it was like the best learning experience of my life. Like, I don't think I could learn more in an MBA. Like, I'm so grateful to that job, to Stroll, and like my bosses and managers there who we're still very close and in touch with. I would put together business plans for the CEO for like what I would do with SEO and PPC. I also ran like social media. I ran every single channel. They were like, okay, Purna, here, you go and manage it. So getting to learn and approach a business like exactly as a CEO would, like understand how the warehouse works, how finance works, how HR recruiting works, was really tremendous. And I was really fortunate that I got a start. And then they were the ones, despite being in-house, who encouraged me to be like, go out and speak, go to conferences, meet different people. So I went to my first SMX in like 2009, 2010, I think. And I meet Brad. I'm like, oh my God, Brad, like, you're so amazing. I'm going to like start here and like be your bestie, and I'll wear you down eventually because you're amazing. And thankfully to this day, he's one of my biggest mentors. But I'm like, you changed my life. Like, I love PPC and everything because of you and your training that I did. So that's how I went from there. And I got to learn all about customer retention, lifetime value is the best way to measure progress forecast. So that was great.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool like to see, you know, Brad is obviously an industry icon. I got to get him on the podcast at some point as well. But he has touched or influenced so many people over the years because of his position of being the trainer and everything. But I think that, it's really cool to see that you've been able to take it way, many levels beyond just being a student and getting to that point. But it sounds like a lot of it has to do with like one, getting the experience. So you had the experience at the agency, and then you have the experience working in the business of a startup, which is really, really cool as well. And then sort of going out there and speaking and sharing that as well. So one of the things that I'm curious about is maybe describing the difference between working in an agency where you might have many clients and you're making suggestions, you're doing work, but ultimately you might not be able to see everything through to completion, or you might not have the full participation, then to going to a business where the business you get to see everything through to completion, like to see, oh, well, if we implement social media, we get this much sales, we have this much of an impact on the customer. So what was it like working in both those businesses, and maybe describe the differences?
Each has like so many advantages and so many disadvantages. Agency side is, of course, fabulous because you get to work across lots of different companies, and you get to see like trends and patterns and be like, oh my gosh, this is what I'm noticing with ads working in this way. Or I can talk to different business owners and understand different needs. So I'm very happy I did agency side first because it made me go really, really broad. So I had a lot of really good broad understanding. And I always did SEO and PPC from the beginning, right? I have this terrible joke that I say I'm bisexual, and I've always been because I do both. So I could see parallels across both of them. I mean, this was before social became really big, across many different clients. So I loved seeing that. But what I couldn't get was, as you said, I couldn't get the deeper insights. I couldn't be like, hey, how is this really working for you? Like, am I impacting your bottom line? How can I have some more control over the process? It was more like, oh, well, we're going to cut your hours. Or, hey, just do like 30 hours. I'm like, I don't have enough work I can do for 30 more hours in the week, or things like that. So you don't have as much control. Going in-house, you get the depth. Agency is the width, and the in-house, it's amazing. You understand the customer and the customer journey a lot better. What you lose out is like I don't know if what I'm seeing is that unique to me, or is that a trend in the industry? Am I spotting something emerging? So you don't see that. But what you can do is understand. I'm like, look, this is how my different channels work together. Like, I'm going to go sit with the head of email marketing and say that, listen, I can do these ads that can help your email, or your email campaign can help some of my efforts, and see the cross back and forth. You get to plan projects. You get that business and the leadership understanding that I'm very grateful that I did get. So it's each is in half, and you put it together. I would encourage everybody to work both agency side and in-house if they can.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that they both have awesome pluses and minuses, and the cool thing is that if you do both, you get to see the pluses of both sides, and it's exactly what you describe. When you're on the agency, it's like dating a bunch of different people.
Yeah.
But maybe not being able to not getting further than that, and so the relationship you can get really far with it, but it sometimes can be empty at the end of it, right? You're not committing to the overall process or some type of commitment there. Maybe that's a bad
I was like,
analogy,
it's Tinder versus Match.com. There we go, something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, there you go. Yes, it's Tinder versus. Yes, there we go. we did that's like an article that Larry Kim just
good
wrote.
God,
Like he's tapped into our brains, and now he's going to write that article. So I think that's a great way to put it, though, is that the difference between what you're looking for and getting both experiences. I think everybody should have those in their career, and I think that I agree with you. Well, it's hard for me. We both have the same experience of like doing the agency and then working on products and marketing products, and I think that. Obviously, if you do that second, you do have that agency experience is really helpful there. So I can't speak to have started in a product and then going to an agency, but I've seen people do both of those. So many ways to do something. Okay, so you're working at Stroll, and that's going well. What's on the horizon at that point? It sounds like you're starting to do some speaking, like many speakers. One gig leads to the next, and suddenly, you're seeing yourself doing several of them. It sounds like you're doing like several speeches a month at this point, or maybe
Yeah.
even one a week.
So it all started, I credit it all to Maz. I say like Maz is my Oprah. You know how Dr. Phil goes on on Oprah and then they get their own show. So,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Maz is my Oprah. Like Jen, Erica, Rand. I always everything to you. So what happened was that early 2012, Moz was doing their roadshow and they came to Philly to do like a Moz, like SEO Moz at the Cert Church, which was Seer
Yep.
Interactive's place with Will, who's also like an
Hmm.
amazing mentor for anyone. So they were like, let's do a call out for local speakers. So I'm terrified of public speaking. Like it makes me want to like throw up and faint and like all kinds of horrible things. So let me put my let me throw my name in the hat so that I can conquer my fear of public speaking. And I was like, I'll never get picked. Like who's gonna pick little old me?
Yeah,
And then I was
yeah.
like, shoot, I got picked. And then I was like, my first speaking gig is on a stage, uh, and it is with Will Reynolds, Rand Fishkin, Joanna Lodge, and like all these amazing people. I'm like, oh my God, this cannot get more terrifying than this. And it was recorded and live streamed and on YouTube. I'm like, oh
Oh
good
my
God, I
God.
will never live this down.
That's like the most, yeah, that's like everybody's nightmare. That's like the situation everybody imagines when they think of public speaking is that, yeah, you're gonna be, yeah, going outside of your comfort zone.
Exactly. So I'm like, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? So of course, terrified, terrified. And I did it. And it was actually, I really liked it at the end. It felt really nice, like when you get to talk to other people. And I just enjoyed having all the
Yeah.
attention on me. So no,
Yeah.
I mean, it was pretty nerve wracking to go up, but
Yeah, but I love the way that you phrase it. That like that's a great quote, and that is, this is so far outside of my comfort zone. I might as well apply, because I think that most people do not do that. Like I love to just jump in head first and then figure it out as you go along type attitude. That's something that more of us could benefit
yeah,
from.
my old COO would always be like, Purna, just throw the spaghetti at the wall, see what sticks, and you'll find the solution. He's like, give you the
Yeah,
problem,
yeah.
and I guarantee you'll find the solution. And I was like, shoot. So that's what came up, and then I met the folks at Search Engine Watch, and I ended up being like, hey, can I write for you? And they took a chance on me, and one thing led to the other. So I wrote for a little bit because I had my journalism background, and I missed that. So
Hmm.
that helped. And then like SMS East came along like 8 months later, and I'm like, Brad, do you think we should pitch it? And he was like, of course you should, like go. And he's like, and I did, and I got it. I'm like, oh my God, now what do I do? Like this is even this is like SMX. And so then of course everything through grand fear and terror, but through a lot of supportive people in our industry, right? I love it. Like I would call Manny from Aimclear and be like, Manny, I'm gonna like cry. What do I do?
Yeah.
And people are like, you'll be fine. And everyone has sort of been so encouraging and be like, no, you will be comfortable. Rick Dragon had given me the best advice. He was like, listen, just go out there and have fun with it. Think of it as a good opportunity. You're talking about what you love. Go and have fun. And I'm like, yeah, I should have fun. And I mean, now I really love it,
Yeah.
right? Cut to like 5 years later, and like, this is my job. I have to go and represent Bing at events and with big client things.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I couldn't think of a better job ever. So I'm so glad I went to overcome that fear. But it doesn't mean I'm going bungee
Hmm.
jumping because I think heights and I just should stay away from each other. So
Yes. I'm curious about prep work you do in these early ones, because obviously, like you said, now it's sort of your job to do it. And so part of that must be prep work and everything. But when you do jump into the Search Church in Philadelphia, or when you go to a SMX conference, how did you prepare it? Did you just put together a deck? Did you practice it 100 times? Did you call your friends and do live Skyping sessions? Did you set yourself a timer on your phone? How do you know what to do?
yeah, so I can't practice in front of anyone else. So what I did, I think at the early beginning stages, I went and I searched for all these articles on how to prepare and what to do. And I write the whole
Hmm.
outline because I remember I just went to my journalistic roots first and I would go and just write it all out as an article. And I'm like, okay, how can I take a written form and make it spoken form? And then I'd put it into PowerPoint And I wasn't I wasn't that good before. There's that whole saying, which is like your taste is always very good, but your abilities, you need practice before you can match your taste. So I think there was a lot of like, oh
Yeah,
my God,
yeah,
I hate this. And like, no, keep going.
yeah,
And yes, a lot of worked my way up. Like I would analyze speakers that I really liked. I'm like, what do I like about this person? What do I like about that person? Like, and take from them. So, from somebody like Will and Avinash Kaushik, I'm like, I love that energy and the vitality and the passion. From
yeah,
Rand and Joanna, it was like that honesty and caring. It's like, you look at the different people, like from Brad, it was just like, I am so brilliant. And I'm like, okay, I have to keep learning
Mhm.
from all these different, Marty would have his like fun. You could tell Marty has a great time on stage. Then I look at a
Yeah,
lot of the different, like Elizabeth Marston. She's always so calm and like collected and confident. So I would look at everybody and try to be
yep,
like, these are the qualities I really like, and how can I emulate them a little bit? So that was what
hmm,
I would do. I'd practice a little bit, but get terrified.
yes, yes. Well, I think the more practice, the easier or the less
Yeah.
terrified you get. And it's not just practicing that one speech; it's everything, right? Like a lot of, you just got to work your way up to the responsibility, and then eventually doors open. And that's actually the next thing I wanted to ask you about is just the opening of doors related to both being great at managing, PPC, SEO, and everything, but also being a speaker. How has that opened up doors for you? How has that helped you in your progression moving
I
forward?
think it's helped with a good amount because you get the connections when you talk to a lot of different people from the industry, and we're so willing to help each other out. If It's helped me get better at my job because if I'm like struggling with something, say in the beginning, if I was in house and I'm like, oh, I'm seeing this as an issue, I just reach out to somebody. Like, are you seeing this as well? Like, how do you solve a problem like this? And it helps you get better with what you do. So that just means you get better performance reviews, etc. The other thing is, that
Hmm.
visibility has been very helpful in terms of landing different jobs. So when I left Stroll, I went to another company for a little while, pet insurance. And then I consulted independently for a while before Microsoft reached out to me. Uh, and
Hmm.
that consulting independently, it helped to have that visibility that she's a sort of speaker and a writer. And that just lent its
Yep.
credibility to clients when they come in, which is nice. I mean, not to say like everybody who speaks and all are the best ones, but I think you just have that little
Hmm.
clout that comes with it. And Microsoft is what I got because of they knew me. So I had met the person from Microsoft who referred me like way back in 2010. And every time there was a conference, I'd go up and say hello. I would chat with people like
Hmm.
Francis and Jeff Clarn and all these like amazing people at Microsoft for so long at different shows that when the opening came up, they thought of me. And they reached out to me like, do you want to
Yeah.
come and work at Microsoft? Listen, I'm 4 months into starting my own business. Like, I don't know. And they were like, well, just come to New York, meet us a little bit, let's chat further. And then I was going to be at SMX Advance, and they said, well, come and just meet Ken, who's my manager now. And of course I go, and I'm like, I felt like madly in love with Ken. Is like amazing. He's so inspiring, and I feel like everyone at Microsoft or who knows Ken is like, oh my God, you work for Ken? I'm like, yeah. So he's so great to work with, and he's so then I was like, I can't turn this opportunity down. I had to take it, and
Hmm.
I think it's the best decision I ever made.
So the job interview was like basically speaking and putting yourself out there. It was like the ultimate resume to the point where they're finding you, or that you're sort of working with them and forming a relationship. That's really
And I mean, I
cool.
did have a proper formal interview, right? Because Microsoft is like you meet like several
Yeah.
different people
Yes.
over like 2 days, and so that was that. But
Yeah.
yeah, they already knew who I was, and because my job involved speaking in front of people, they'd seen me do it. They'd seen what I could write, so that was they had my references almost before I did it.
Yeah. Did you interview with not with Bill Gates or Satya
No,
or
oh my
anything? No,
gosh, I would
right?
love to meet Satya. Like I'm such a crazy like fangirl of Satya. Like I follow him obsessively. Him and our COO Amy Hood. She's like the most brilliant woman. All of us were like we want to grow up and be like Amy Hood. She's so inspiring and smart and relatable and honest. So that's we have some great management at Microsoft. Like I know I'm a Microsoftie, so I should be biased, but I'm really not. Like I feel so lucky to work from people who are caring and brilliant and humble and will talk to anybody.
That's cool though. I mean, the fact that you're there is really neat, and it's like it sounds like it's all merit, right? Like just going out there and putting yourself out there. And now what do you like? Describe your job to us. Like, what do you do at Microsoft? What's your I don't know if there's a typical day. I'm sure there's not, but like, what are you responsible for, and what's your mission
I
there?
guess it's so funny. It's like my job is like a culmination of all my previous jobs and careers.
Hmm.
My role is actually trainer. So the simplest way to explain it would be, it's my job to get to go out there and like evangelize search and the awesome things companies can do, both at events as well as like direct one-on-one with clients. So I would go to like one of our big advertisers or agencies and visit their office and just give them like a one-on-one talk on, like, for example, shopping campaign tips. This is what you can do with shopping, or have you thought of using remarketing in this like different way? So anything from strategic to the tactical. And so my job is half the time I'm either preparing the content and the other half I'm traveling and delivering the content. So that's pretty much my average week, is I'm frantically creating PowerPoints and articles. And then the other half is like, I get to go and have fun and present in front of people, my fellow search people who I feel so fortunate that I get to talk to so many of them.
Yeah, obviously there's a need for that, and I think that it's an investment. It sounds like an investment that Microsoft's making to get there, but it also helps you, like you said, it's a combination of everything else that you've done at the same time, all in one.
Exactly. Like I have to like use my journalistic research skills to like sort of stay up to date. Like occasionally I'll like dip into an account or two to stay current. So I get to do that. But it's also like the presentation, like what's the story and how do I make it interesting? Because again, I am not sales and I'm not marketing. I'm purely under a division at Microsoft called innovation. So we have to be innovative. And how do I come up and share the message in a way that is meaningful and valuable to you? Because that's what I think Bing's thing is. Like, we're going to invest this money and we're customer obsessed. Right? We want to go there and give value to our customers. And me and my team is just one small part of what happens in that. So if I can come out and understand that, okay, if you're a CEO of this agency, this is what your problem is, or this is what concerns you may have, I'll be like, how can I make your life easier? Or if I'm talking to like the new hires or like interns at an agency, can we do a little boot camp for you that you can get your search skills from 0 to hero in like 6 hours? So trying to find different people and address their needs the best way we can.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was going to ask you about that. Is like, how do you, and maybe you can't even say it, but like, how do you figure out a KPI on something? And I think that a lot of it has to do with just moving the needle, right? Bringing up the perception of Bing Ads, getting people using it, getting people excited about it. There's a lot of value in
exactly.
doing
Like if a customer who I've trained on, say, Bing Ads remarketing will go in and be like, you know what? I feel so confident now to go in and run a remarketing campaigns. I really enjoyed it. And I found value and I learned this from you and I went and I did it. That's like a huge win for me. Cause I'm like, yes, I'm so lucky, Jeff. Like my job is to get people to fall as much in love with search as I am. So I just share the nerdiness. So if you can get super nerdy and excited about anything to do with search, then my job is done.
That's great. I love the excitement and I love it when you geek out. And so I think that's a good transition into some of these, what I call rapid fire questions, to learn more from you, like to get some tips and some practical takeaways we can use. And so I'm curious, I've seen that a lot of your presentations lately have been about things like voice search. So how did you get involved with voice search?
Oh my gosh, this came from a grand tragedy, actually. At the start of this year, I went to India for a cousin's wedding, and it's 12 in the afternoon. Halfway through my trip, I'm crossing like 20 feet of road, and this speeding out of control motorcyclist comes turning onto the street at like 800 miles an hour and knocks into me. There was nowhere I could move, and he just hit me. I went flying in the air, landed on my hands, at my wrists, and I got a concussion, and I had 2 massively broken wrists. I needed surgery. I had no hands. I was like, I couldn't hold a book, I couldn't hold a remote control. And at some point, my husband was like, I'm not changing the channel 100 times a minute anymore. So, in boredom and desperation, and because, with the concussion, my brain wasn't working, I turned to Siri and Cortana and Alexa,
Wow.
and they became my entertainers and my entertainment. So, I would talk to Siri, Alexa would play music for me. Siri would answer dumb questions and do searches. And then as I started using it a lot more in full helplessness, right? There was like a period of 6 weeks that I could only really use this. I realized that the way I'm using it is different. And then I started reading this other interview where Google's Amit Singhal was talking about how he stopped carrying a wallet around and he only had his phone. And as he was using his phone, he was discovering he's using it in different ways. I'm like, hey, maybe there's some trend here. Let me go and see. So I really went to our
Yeah.
lovely data scientist team. Like, can you share some trends? Like, what are you guys seeing? Can I do some research? I dug into different people's accounts because I can. And then
Yep.
I went in to see what I could find. And I noticed these huge trends, and it's different in so many different ways. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, this is fascinating. And I fell madly in love with voice search. So I guess from tragedy, something good came out.
So voice as an input is an interesting concept, right? Because I think people have experimented with it. I think that some of it's generational. It's hard to get somebody who didn't grow up with it to use it in a way. There's also the public element of it, of saying something out loud and hearing people say that. So the privacy piece of it. But I do find that it's really useful in many situations of getting information and getting at something when you just don't have the ability to do it. Like you said, when unfortunately, tragically, that you were injured, and that's what forced you to use it. But I think just sort of it fits itself around certain situations really
Well,
well.
the reason I didn't use it before was because I've lived in like 4 countries, so my accent's a mix of all four. So it used to be really difficult before for
Oh yeah.
Siri to understand me, and it was frustrating. But that's true. The error rate's gone from like 25%-ish a couple of years ago to less than 8. So now she does understand me.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Like, you remember those Bluetooth days? Like, we judge everybody talking on Bluetooth like what a jerk. Uh, it's changing
Hmm.
with voice. It's become more acceptable. Because like you and I were talking that you have an Alexa, like the Echo, and if you didn't talk to
Yeah.
Alexa, there was nothing else you could do with your Echo. We also see
Yeah.
driving is the number one place people tend to be using voice search. So it's private, but it's also
Hmm.
when you can't type or can't drive, and we're getting comfortable with it.
Yeah. No, that's what I've found is that there are certain times where, or actually, there's many times where it's the best way to do things. And it's like at my family's house, we have the Amazon Echo, the Alexa on there, around there, and we'll just be talking about something, and we're like, well, I wonder what the answer is to that, and then we'll just say Alexa, and then it will turn on, and then it will ask it the question, it will give us an answer, and it's just so much more useful in context. Like there's a lot of context around voice search that comes in handy, and that's what I found is my use case for it is when the context allows for it, and when you don't want to break away from what you're doing, but you just want an answer. Because I mean, searching on Bing or Google, whatever your preferred search engine is, to find something is a several step process. But if you can use your assistant like Cortana or Siri or Alexa, then it gets to be a lot more integrated with what you're doing.
No, that's absolutely 100% right.
And if you have any research, we'll put it in the show notes. That if you have any presentation or research, because I think a lot of the listeners will be curious about that, especially since podcasts are such a personal thing, and obviously the person's probably listening on their phone right now. So it might be if there a lot of people are listening in their cars. I've gotten a lot of feedback from people that it's something they listen to on either long drives or short drives, or in their commute and stuff like that. So we will see if we can get you some research to share there as well.
Awesome. I will. I have a couple of articles that I wrote, like one's on Mars, from like it's like coming home to my Mars family.
Great. So what in your, and we've already talked a little bit about this with public speaking, but what in your career did you think would be really scary but ended up being a lot easier than you thought it would be?
Oh my gosh, I think the conferences, but it was that. And then ultimately, anytime I was handed a brand new sort of channel, they'd be like, okay, Purna, here's our social media. I know you've never done it, but go and run Facebook ads. I'm like, okay, let me go and figure this out. Or like, go and run this retention program and increase our lifetime value by whatever percent. I'm like, what? I'm an SEO or a PPC. What do I know about retention? And then just going and figuring it out and making it work. So it's been push off the cliff and you'll figure out how to fly.
I think I couldn't agree more. How much time do you think somebody should put into personal branding, maybe above and beyond their 9-to-5 job?
I think it's really important to do that because as our industry is growing and then there's so many of us, and yes, jobs are of course plentiful still, and this is a good industry. You want to be the person that sets yourself apart and try to grow your network. It can only work wonders for you.
Yeah, put yourself out there, meet people both in person and online, and just, build relationships. Absolutely. What's a PPC tip that nobody's talking about right now that you think they should be?
I think voice is a big subject that people should be thinking about a lot more. And it goes a little bit beyond voice. It should be also the digital personal assistants as a whole. Think about how we're using it and how they're controlling our lives a little bit. It's almost as if they're like the bouncer to our lives or the gatekeeper. Mm-hmm. Soon, all the ads and what we see is going to be filtered out by these digital personal assistants because they're going to know us a lot better. So how do you get your ad through? Like, what do you need to be doing? Like, should you be changing? Should you be looking at different ad formats?
Yeah. Okay. Let's go on to the next one. If you had no experience, how would you get started in this industry today?
Oh, that's a good question. I would probably go to, Bing. We've got some really good resources for people who want to learn. We have at Bing this whole accreditation program that's good beginner level. Listen to podcasts like yourself. I would also try to read search engine land, marketing land, Moz, and try to find out where people are sharing articles in a good source. And then I would volunteer at a local charity or organization and said, listen, do you mind if I could try and run some ads for you? So I would connect with as many people as I can to try to find opportunities and be like, listen, I'm willing to work for free. I just want to learn. Like, I'm a very hungry learner. So let me see what I can do. And that's how I would try to find it. But I would create opportunities if they didn't come my way. I'd volunteer for local business. I'm like, listen, you're my local pizza shop. I order from you all the time. Let me just try to run a campaign for you and see if I can get you more business.
I love it. This is exactly the advice that I give everybody. I say, create experience. If you don't have it, don't use it as an excuse. Go out there and be willing to work for free, even if it, and like focus. Like, you don't need the money. Maybe you need the money, but you don't need money today. You need a lot more money in 10 years when you have the experience and you've gotten there. You got to swallow or suck it up a little bit at first and then go from there. Yeah,
no, it's an investment in yourself, right? You've got to invest in yourself. Like, I'm going to fork out this whatever money or my resources, which could be time or money, and I'm going to look at it as an investment in myself. Like, and I did that too, Jeff. Like, there were so many times at conferences I would pay to go myself, just to go and have the opportunity to go and speak. Like, you believe in yourself and invest in your own career, and those opportunities will come.
Absolutely. I think that's a key point as well. And that is that sometimes you have to actually pay for the experience, right? It's not like you're just not making money, you're paying money sometimes to get experience. And it's something that in history people have done forever with like apprenticeships and other things, but it seems like a lot of people want the idea of being a marketer, but they don't want to put in the time and effort to get there. So sometimes you might have to pay money in order to get to that experience level.
Exactly.
Okay. So what do you think the future is of PPC? And I know we've already touched on it a little bit with like the voice search stuff, but anything else in the future?
I think so. Like, I think if you think about new trends, like, at Microsoft's Build conference, they were talking about conversation as a platform. And we can see these trends already with Amazon's partnership with Kayak, for example. I can be like, hey, Alexa, can you look on Kayak for me and tell me what are some good hotels for $300 or less a night in Barcelona? And she can do this, and you can have this whole interaction that would be on a form. I can now have that online, like just verbally. So that's going to be changing. Like, how do we get our ads and how do we get noticed then? That's going to be the big key question. What is the future of sort of advertising if the world is moving to talking and digital personal assistants?
Yeah, no, that is an interesting.
The other one is also going to be things like virtual and mixed reality. We can show ads in there too. It'll be so easy. Like imagine if I'm having like HoloLens, which is Microsoft's product, that you will cast holograms for you when you're sitting. So if I'm sitting there and it has a hologram of like my to-do list on my fridge, is it gonna be like, Purna, don't forget that you can, if you want to, I have a list to like, whatever, buy a new sofa. Like, you might want to go to store XYZ, they're having a sale. Like, I don't know. That would be interesting to think about.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. I mean, it seems like there's a few ways to do it, but it might be that these things are all ad supported, right? So in order to have the holographs.
Oh, I don't know if it would be all the way there, but I don't know. Like those are all these conversations that are happening like way higher above than my pay grade. I'm just super excited to see it come to life, like as and when it does.
Yeah, and I think that it goes down to intent, right? Like if somebody's searching for something, then they want an answer. And if the search is for commercial product or something that something that has monetary value, then people will pay to be the featured result, or they'll pay to connect to people who they have a solution for. Key is if search gets so good that it just gives the answer, and there's only one answer. I think as long as there's human nature that there's going to be multiple answers or something, then advertising will be right alongside
Absolutely.
of it.
We're just going to have less to sort through because they're going to understand us a lot better. So if we're going from 9 spots to 4 to 2, how do you make sure you're those 2? That's something us PPCs are going to have to figure out a little bit.
Yes, and soon. Okay, so last question. What advice do you have for a new marketer, or if somebody gave you advice, like you mentioned Brad and Justin along the way, what was the best piece of advice you received along the way? Either one or both of those?
I think that I'm very intense and type A and like nerdy, as I'm sure you realize through this conversation. So I think a good advice people give me is like, just make sure you're enjoying it the whole time, because if you just take a second and think about it, I'm working in one of the best industries in the whole world with doing some of the coolest things, and working with some of the most wonderful, warm people. Like we should just take a step back and be like, oh my gosh, I'm having so much fun. I love it. And like, I'm so lucky and blessed. I think sometimes it's just take a second to have that gratitude for where we are is good advice, because otherwise you get so focused on the next thing. And I'm so busy and I got to do this. And I've got to book this flight and fly to this country and that country, that it's nice to be like, I'm here, and let me take a second and breathe and focus on all this amazingness that's happening in the industry. And what a good time to be in this industry as well.
Yeah, exactly. So I appreciate that, and I think this is going to be a hit with all of our listeners. This has been really a pleasure to talk to you. So thanks so much, Purna.
Oh my gosh, I loved every minute. Thanks, Jeff, again for having me.
Well, that was a treat. After the interview, Purna and I talked until the internet gods decided that they wanted their bandwidth back. But that wasn't before we decided that next time we should chat. We'll cut out the pretenses of recording, and we'll just talk about the industry, our ambitions, and more. I'm looking forward to that conversation. Purna Virji is a classic example of somebody who took the leap from a student to a master in only a matter of years. She decided to pursue her passion and focused on expanding her world. And it has paid off tremendously now that she's landed with a large company like Microsoft and has a really cool title in the innovation department. So I wish Purna great success in the future, although I don't really think she needs luck because she's been able to create a lot of her own luck, and I'm looking forward to talking in a more casual setting next time we meet up. For show notes, visit jeffalytics.com/Purna.
Should consider voice to cut through all the noise, the clutter on the net. Who will bother typing search when you can talk and treat your Siri like a pet? Cause spoken query is so different from the one you input when you're using text. Now guess what happens next? Guess what happens next? Guess what happens next?